Hey guys, what's up? Chris Rod, Sun City Lawn Care. Today we are talking about 5, 6, 9, 1,000 basic tips that you guys should be doing to get your lawns ready for the spring, okay? Very simple stuff, you know. You can start anywhere, but I want you to pretend just for a second that your lawn, your dirt, I'm here in El Paso, Texas, guys. Your dirt, your sand lot is a blank canvas. You have the ability to transform that canvas into anything that your mind can think of. You'll let your imagination go wild. But today we're talking about some of the basic lawn care steps that you as homeowners can take to ensure you've got a green, healthy, thick lawn throughout the growing season, and you guys can all dominate your neighbors, okay? So step number one is you got to take care of your equipment. And what I mean by that is you really need to get out there, take the blade off of the mower, grind it down, okay? Videos on how to do that sort of stuff is out there. You know, educate yourselves. I'll show you a little quick clip how I do mine. And then, you know, if you've got a mower that's been sitting there for a while, you may want to think about changing out the gas, changing the oil, spark plugs, etc. But first thing you got to do is get that mower blade sharpened. A dull blade is going to leave some cut, some frayed grass blades, okay? And that's going to give it this like brownish, yellowish haze look when your green tissue, the leaf tissue is green, but at the top, if you just start chopping away at a rusty mower, it's going to look pretty bad, guys. That's not how you dominate a neighbor. So the first thing you guys got to do, pull your mower out of the shed, take the blades off, get it sharpened, okay? Next, testing. And this one, I've done a video recently about soil testing. You've got to get your soil tested, okay? I want you guys, maybe some of you guys grow some vegetables, maybe you don't, okay? I can tell you from my own experience with lawn care and gardening is that we do test our soil. The point of this is to figure out, again, blank canvas, right? The point of this is to figure out what you're working with. When it's a blank canvas, it's white. You know where to start, okay? There's no color to it whatsoever. You know, you can throw some paint on there and it's gonna look good, right? With the soil systems inside of a garden or inside of the lawn, the unfortunate part is that we don't know what is inside the soil system, okay? Unless you've been maintaining it, you know, year after year, you know what kind of macro and micronutrients you've been putting down. You got a rough idea, right? But things change, okay? Rain, for example, can change the acidity level inside of your soil system. pH levels change, okay? They decrease, they increase. The water that you're using, your city water, sometimes that may change, okay? The point though is you got to get some cores pulled throughout your lawn, throughout your garden. You got to get it to a lab and you got to have it tested. The reason why you want to do this is so that you know your blank canvas, so that you know where to start. Okay, if you guys are the lawn care guys out there, guys and gals, and you're implementing biostimulants and you're putting down nutrients, your fertilizers, you don't know how much to put down. If you have to do a pH correction, you don't know whether to put lime or your sulfur, your elemental sulfur, at what quantities to put down. If you don't have a test done by a lab to tell you how much to put down, you got to know what you're working with, okay? So step one, get your equipment out, get it sharpened. Step two, just to reiterate here, is to get a soil test. Very important. Once you have that soil test, for example, in my own lawn, and I've known this for a couple years, and I do supplemental additives, elemental sulfur in my case, because we're on the alkaline side of things here in El Paso. A lot of the yards, I'm telling you guys all right now, here in El Paso, everybody watching, your sandy soil system is typically high and it's alkaline, okay? And you've got to bring that alkalinity level down to a more neutral zone, if you're growing Bermuda grass in particular, to a 6, 6.5, okay? And you do that with elemental sulfur. But how do I know that? How do I know to do that? Well, that's basic step number 2, really, is getting your soil tested to where you know to add some sulfur to bring down that pH level. For years, here's another really good example. I'm going on my third year of gardening here in El Paso in the desert, and I can grow some cherry tomatoes like crazy, right? But the big, juicy, fat, beefy tomatoes right behind me here in this area, I've had trouble with. I just can't get them to turn red. Is it a calcium deficiency? I don't know. Actually, I do know, okay? It's my pH level, okay? The sand resides underneath my garden beds as well, okay? That's all pre-existing. It's been amended over the 2-3 years now, but the point I'm trying to make, though, is when you get a soil test, step number 2, is that you'll know whether or not you have a alkaline or acidic soil system. And as gardeners, we know that certain vegetables like acidic soils. Therefore, because I'm running a 7.6 pH level, I need to continue bringing down my pH, my alkaline, to an acidic soil system so that my tomatoes can flourish and they get better every single year, okay? But you don't know that stuff unless you're doing soil tests, guys. All right, so moving on to step number 3, spring cleanup. Best thing you could do for your lawn, all right? Fall is over. Springtime is here. You hear the birds chirping? Okay. As gardeners, we clean out our beds from the leaf mold that we were using to cover the soil system throughout the winter, right? To prevent that snow from saturating the soil system. The same thing applies to your lawn. Now, we don't get a lot of snow here in El Paso, okay? But lawns are dormant. The Bermuda dormancy is there. We've got clients that have tall fescue, okay? Things are starting to wake up. The microorganisms inside not only the gardens, but inside the soil systems are starting to do their thing, right? Bermuda lawns over the next 2 weeks are gonna start to turn from a brown to a green, okay? And spring cleanups are very important. And one of the ways that you conduct a spring cleanup is by doing what we call dethatching. Okay, I don't have my rake with me, and it's very difficult for me to do any kind of dethatching because my Bermuda grass is so thick. I don't have a thick thatch layer. But what we're trying to do in the point, and this is part of the spring cleanup for a lawn here in El Paso in the south, it applies to the north too, is you take a rake. You can use a dethatching machine where it rolls over the course of the lawn. It's got these tines that kind of rotate and they pick up that extra material that's been mowed and left there in the lawn throughout last year. It picks that up and you got to haul that material off. But raking up any kind of leaves, any kind of debris. Here's a really good example. Before I started working on my garden yesterday, as you can see, there's some debris, some leaves here, okay? That's all from the garden bed, kind of like a trickle around here because I was clearing out my garden for my new vegetables. But spring cleanup means you get rid of that excessive material. You don't want anything laying on side of your lawn, on top of your lawn, that's gonna prevent the big ball of sun and oxygen from getting to the soil system. So when you dethatch, spring cleanup, step 3, you dethatch, you're raking all that material, that dead, dying, decaying, decomposing material from the soil system, just like we do our gardens, from the lawn soil system, so that you get more airflow. And when you start to water, because we're watering more now, right? As you start to water more, you get that water penetration because you've dethatched and removed that dead material or leaves, so the water will actually penetrate down into the soil system. That is what you want. When I say spring cleanup for step number 3, that is what I'm referring to. Primarily giving the lawn a nice, easy raking or dethatching, okay? And get rid of that dead, dying, and decomposing grass from last season or any kind of leaves that may be on the lawn. That's step 3. I think it was number 3, that spring cleanup, right? Getting rid of the thatch layer, doing some raking, light raking, getting rid of the leaf material. This guy right here, aeration. And this is primarily what I want you guys here in El Paso to focus about. You could do it, anywhere else if you'd like. Springtime is an opportunity to get more airflow down into the soil system, and that's what we're focusing on when we're talking about spring cleanups. So when I tell you guys to dethatch, we're trying to remove some materials to get that sunlight and that oxygen down to the soil system. The same thing applies for aerating. Okay, now typically, especially you guys up in the north, you want to aerate in the fall because you combine that with an overseeding process. You can do it in the springtime as well. You have to make a decision though on your compaction level in your soil system, okay? So if you've got extremely compacted soil, you might want to aerate. Here in the south, here in El Paso especially, we've got these caliche rocks everywhere, and we got this soil system that's just crazy compacted, and you guys can't grow anything because your root system of either your grass or your vegetables don't have any room to grow and to promote growth. You need that space. You need that loose soil system. So again, going back to that step where we're talking about spring cleanups, in addition to raking up material, you're also going to want to go ahead and incorporate aeration, okay? Aerating, part of the spring cleanup process, is two options. Either A, use that aerate product that we got. I'm not going to put the link in below. If you want some of it, give me a call. I'll do it for you, or go find it. But a mechanical aeration can be done as well. Go get the machine, get some holes in the ground, get that airflow down in there so that you get more oxygen and H2O penetration. It's going to loosen up your compacted soil and get some of that roots starting to flourish down there, guys. But aeration is also included in that spring cleanup. All right, guys, moving on to step number 4, feeding your lawn. Okay, step 2 was that soil test, right? You figured out whether you're nutrient deficient, whether on the micro or the macro level. You figure out your pH levels. You've done a soil correction, whether you're alkaline or you're too acidic, and you've added some lime or some elemental sulfur. So now we're starting to correct our pH, right? Early springtime tip number 4 is feeding the lawn. Bermuda grass down here in the south, especially El Paso, dry climate, heat, hot, sandy soil systems, got no water retention value, has no nutritional retention value. So feeding the lawn, if you guys, and a lot of you guys, and I get inquiries about this all the time, if you're working with a blank canvas, meaning you've got some bare spots, sandy spots throughout the yard, you need to top dress it with a feeding product, primarily compost. Okay, take a screened compost and give it a 1/4 inch layer on top of that sand. That is one way to feed it. We do the same thing with our gardens. We want to retain those microorganisms working in the soil system, so we don't want to add things that it doesn't need. We want to add things that it does need, okay? And again, here in the south, El Paso, and primarily sandy soil systems, you want to give it a coating of compost, screened compost. If you guys don't know where to get some, give me a call, shoot me a direct message. I'll tell you exactly where to get screened compost at. But what you do is you top dress the lawn with some compost. That's one way to feed the lawn. The second way, or it could be the first way if you're working with a good soil system and a good lawn, is fertilizer. Going back to step 2, that soil test should have told you what kind of fertilizer to use. You might be deficient in nitrogen. You might have an extremely high phosphorus and you don't need any more phosphorus, okay? Or maybe you're lacking a little bit of potassium. So it's going to tell you and make recommendations on what kind of fertilizer to use. For example, if you've been using Milorganite for years, you're probably pretty high in phosphorus, okay? You should not be applying any more Milorganite to your lawn. You have to switch your fertilizer, okay? But the point I'm trying to make is that you got to feed the lawn. So right now we're getting into certain temperature ranges where Bermuda is starting to come out of dormancy and wake up. The way that you press that and you push that growth rate is through fertilizer applications, okay? Read the label. Again, the label is always the law on the bag or the fertilizer product that you purchase. Figure out your square footage. It's going to tell you exactly how many pounds to put on the ground so that you do not breach your soil tests, okay? Or that you do not get excessive with it. You have to understand that if you guys are applying a synthetic, like a Scott's brand, Scott's is a great brand. If you're applying a synthetic fertilizer and you don't know how many exact pounds of product you're putting in the ground, you could burn and ruin your lawn. So you have to literally take a measuring cup, take a pitcher, take a blender, whatever's got the cups on it, convert it to pounds, use a freaking scale, weigh your granulars. If you're using a liquid application, you got to do the conversion work. The point I'm trying to make is you got to feed your lawn. That's really step number 4, feeding your lawn, giving it some nutrients that you may be deficient in, or not giving it some nutrients that you guys are over deficient in, or over deficient, that's not right, that you guys might have excess of amounts of, so you don't put any more of said macro or micronutrient into the soil system that's not needed, okay? Or if you're doing your pH correction. But going back to the feeding, got to feed the lawn, guys. You got to remember, plants and gardens, the grass, it's all living organisms, right? Us as humans, and I always preach this to clients, we feed our bodies water and food, the same nutrients that the lawn is fed: potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium, manganese, all that stuff. It all goes in our bodies, it all goes in the lawns as well. But where your deficiencies are, who knows? So you got to feed the lawn. Once you start feeding it, you get that thickness, you're pushing the growth, it spreads. Like Bermuda, for example, you get that lateral spread. And remember this, which is going to lead me into step number 5. When you feed the lawn, you're pushing that growth. When you push that lateral spread with Bermuda, which are called stolons, when you start to push that Bermuda to the left and to the right and everywhere, it's going to get nice and thick. And what do you think happens when you have a thick, healthy lawn because you've been feeding it fertilizer? You get less weeds. Step number 5, guys. Step number 5, mowing. Once you've done step 1 through 4, you've sharpened your blades, you've gotten your soil test. Oh man, I lost my words there. You've done your corrections, okay? You've done your spring cleanup. You've fed it some food. All you got to do after that is keep up with the maintenance as far as the feeding goes, is mow it. Mow it, mow it, mow it. You have to understand, here in the South, we primarily grow Bermuda, here in El Paso especially. I do have some fescue clients. I've got some St. Augustine clients. Southern grasses, the more you mow, even northern grasses, to be honest with you, the more you mow, the more you are pushing that growth rate on that grass type, okay? Bermuda, for example, if you've got a bunch of weeds, again, going back to the whole blank canvas thing, you got some green sprigs popping up, the more you chop off the top of that Bermuda grass type, because you've been mowing twice a week, 3 times a week, you're going to force that grass to spread laterally and thicken up. And if you're trying to fill in some bare dirt areas, again, the more you mow, the thicker it's going to get, and you're going to push that and promote that growth on a lateral spread. So mowing is your best friend. And then for all you DIYers out there that are choosing not to use any kind of herbicides or fertilizers for that matter, mowing's going to be your best friend for the next year, 2 years, summer, whatever you guys choose. It's one of the most organic things you guys could do for your lawns, is to mow it frequently. You can leave the grass clippings if you want. You can bag the grass clippings if you like. It don't really matter. You choose what you want to do. But mowing, again, step number 5, the 5th and final basic thing that you could do for your lawn to have the greenest lawn on the block, guys. Last thing, guys, if you like this content, go ahead and leave me a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And always, as always, if you have a question about how to maintain your lawn here in the South, El Paso, Texas, in particular, leave me a comment so I can get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, guys. Ciao.